I've seen or I felt certain implication of the hard black girls are being mean to the new white girl on the block, right? That's kind of the implication that I think people are giving, or the inference that I think a lot of people are taking from what they have seen. That's what's happening. That's what they believe is happening. And I want to be clear. That is absolutely what's happening, right? The issue is what you think about why it is that's happening and whether you believe that happening is a legitimate problem. I am of the belief that happening is not only not a problem, it is the best thing possible for business. Okay. Now, when I say that the black girls are being mean to her, I'm saying that just because relative to college basketball, at least, this league seems to be a whole lot blacker than women's college basketball. It just happen to be a lot of black women playing in this league. And Caitlin Clark happens to be the new girl and a new woman, right? I can be bad about that. I'm going to do my best. Caitlin Clark happens to be the new woman, right? And she happens to be white. And Sean, you tell me if I'm wrong, but from what I've seen, they out there knocking their ass around.
They sure are.
Okay. And you know why? Because that's what they do. They be knocking people around. This is a league where they be knocking each other around. And I'm going to be honest. If I had known that they was out here knocking each other around like this, I'd have been watching more women's basketball a long time ago.
The league historically has been a lot more aggressive than the men's league when it comes to new rookies and players. Like, you know, there's famous clips of Diana Taurasi getting into faces with rookies and all these things.
Yes.
Like you said, it is a much more aggressive league.
The reason that the NBA is no longer like this is an executive decision. That was a decision from the top that they didn't want the league to get down like that for a number of reasons, chief among them, the world thinking that their league was full of hoodlums, okay? The WNBA ain't really had that many eyeballs on it, so nobody's had to come in and try to sanitize the game in such a way that removes what I would consider to be much of its humanity. And a lot of the humanity of sports, and basketball in particular, is that physicality, is that chippiness, are those things that happen. If I open up the phone lines and say, give us some voicemails about people fighting in pickup games or whatever, which, by the way, will probably be next week's topic, it'll fill up because this is what the game is, right? This is how it goes. And the WNBA seems to have this in spades. And I don't think that's a problem. I think generally speaking, that's a good thing because I've said for the longest, no matter what people tell you, man, people like a little violence in their sports. They just get nervous when black people start fighting. But just the violence part itself, you like a little of it in NASCAR. Whenever the ratings start going down in NASCAR, they be asking them to fight a little bit more. You like it in baseball. We still talk all the time about the time that Nolan Ryan got Robert Ventura in that headlock and on and on and on, okay? This league happens to have that. But something I have said for a long time, and I think gets really tricky when we start talking about women's sports, is that we don't have what I would consider to be, or we have not had in the public, an appropriate discussion of the role that like sex and gender play in why we watch sports in the first place. And a significant part of why sports are such a big deal is because sports celebrate masculinity. They celebrate masculine energy. They celebrate men. And when we add women into this equation, you find that people will get into women's sports when the women, for lack of a better term, act like women. And what I mean by act like women, you can get people to watch, call it figure skating. You can get people to watch, call it gymnastics. You can get them to watch tennis. If they out there in skirts and they out there with bows in their hair and they out there wearing sequin dresses, aka acting like women in the ways that people think of women, then you'll get people into it, right? But when they out here getting extra sweaty and throwing elbows and everything else, hey, people don't exactly know what to do with it. But what's happening with Caitlin Clark is just what happens. It happens in sports. It happens just about like any world where there is some measure of competition, the Caitlin Clark of the world is going to get hazed. Maybe she gets hazed by the people on her team. Maybe she gets hazed by the competition. But it's going to be some measure of hazing. Don't nobody give nothing up in sports. You got to go take it, no matter what that thing happens to be. And this is in a league where it is harder to hold down your spot or harder to keep a spot than anywhere else, because the league is so small and the level of talent is so high. So what's going to happen is it's going to be some people out here bumping Caitlin Clark. It's going to be some people knocking her to the ground. And you know what else it's going to be? It's going to be Caitlin Clark on the other end throwing elbows. It's going to be people getting in her face. You know what it's going to be on the other end? Her getting in people's face. You know how this is going to stop? If you got a problem with Caitlin Clark getting knocked to the ground and elbowed around, it's going to stop one of two ways. One of those ways is she going to stand up and get right back in their faces, or she going to bust their ass on the other end or whatever it goes. They're going to look at her and be like, hey, y'all need to leave her alone, because when y'all get in her face like that, all she do is lock in. That's the biggest thing that ultimately protected Michael Jordan. Hey, man, all you going to do is make that dude mad, and we don't want that. Or number two is going to be she going to have some teammates that come out there and make it clear that y'all need to leave her alone. Right? Those are the options for shutting this down. She ain't going to get it done by flopping. She ain't going to get it done by complaining in press conferences. Because I'm going to be honest right now. If I'm Caitlin Clark, if I'm you, I wouldn't flop all year long, and I wouldn't complain all year long. Because flopping, I think we did something about this on Game Theory. We meant to do something about this on Game Theory if we didn't, but I feel like we did. I remember it. Sean, I'm going to be honest with you. I felt like, and this is us talking about the men's game when we talked about that. Flopping, that's that Karen.
Yeah, same vibe for sure.
It's that Karen. It's real Karen-like behavior. And the last thing Caitlin Clark needs is anybody out here calling her Karen. I'm just telling you right now. Like that's anything that feel Karen-y. If I'm you, I would avoid it. I don't care how bad they treat you, right? I don't care how right you are. That you want to avoid that space. Like if I was your crisis manager, your PR person, you want to get out the Karen space, right? I don't care if they knock out 4 of your teeth. You need to stand up in that motherfucker like Stan Mikita, Bobby Clark, any one of them dudes, Ovi. Ain't he missing a bunch of teeth? You just need to be out here whistling. You know what I'm saying? Like that. Help me help you. I'm just telling you what the game need to be when they out here. You just gonna need to go and take it, or y'all gonna need to get some goons. And I asked on Twitter if the WNBA had a goon culture, and people misunderstood what I meant. And what I meant by goon culture was not a culture where everybody's a goon. I meant a culture where a goon exists, where somebody's entire job is to stop you from engaging in them shenanigans. Because the goon gonna come in. Like you visiting, the goon lived there, right? That was why I was asking that. But of course, because so much of WNBA fandom is just about being defensive, because this isn't a sport for y'all. This is a cause, which is really fucking annoying, right? You can't even really get in there and have that discussion without people being ready to be mad, right? I see a lot of I wish men weren't talking about the WNBA. I wish the men who watch the WNBA didn't talk about it that much, if you want to be honest. Like, we got a whole broken discourse issue when it comes to talking about this league, because the people who were already there are very similar to the people who loved a band or a rap group before they blew up. Like people who liked it when it's underground, it feels more intimate, they like it better. They don't like the company that they have once everybody shows up, which I told y'all was going to be a problem, that y'all ain't want us to get there. Even after y'all asked us to be here, y'all ain't want that. Now everybody's here and they looking around and they like, damn, we don't want that. I told you that you didn't want that, but you do want that because you think that these women are supposed to be rich. And the only way that they gonna get rich is if we all show up, right? So this is what comes with it, right? You want a commensurate level of attention and everything else, then a bunch of morons is gonna show up, and the morons have arrived. Y'all already had some morons who was there, but they your kind of moron, so it's not nearly as bad a thing. And I get that. That makes you no different than everybody else. But the general population moron here now, The median moron has come in and arrived in time here to talk about the WNBA and what goes along with it. Now, to me, this is the most moronic thing about the current discussion that we're having that everybody seems to, at least to me, seems to be missing. All right. I have seen discussion about that play and about what's happening with Caitlin Clark. And it's the idea that the women of the WNBA are jealous. And certainly somebody's jealous. Certainly somebody has beef. Certainly somebody doesn't like her. I bet some of them got some reasons. I bet a lot of them don't. And you know why I bet a lot of them don't? Because athletes are crazy people. They make shit up all the time so that they don't like somebody. Sean, is that not the whole Michael Jordan discussion? How he just be making stuff up?
Yeah, just to get an extra competitive edge, you'll make up that someone hates you.
Yeah.
And every player does that.
This doesn't have to be about anything broader about gender or hierarchy or about how women exist in groups or anything else. These are athletes, and that's what athletes do. They make stuff up to be mad about, right? And there it goes from there. They may actually have good reason to be mad at Caitlin Clark. I don't know her, right? So like when you just jump in with the assumption of jealousy, there may be some level of jealousy. I have no idea. I don't know these people. I don't need to know why people don't like each other when they play basketball. I just know that basketball is better when the people don't like each other. And so I see people make the discussion that they need to not be doing this stuff to Caitlin Clark because nobody's going to tune in to watch that. Yes, they are. I damn sure go tune in to watch this. You're absolutely right that I would tune in to watch whatever the animus is and the back and forth and everything else. But, I'm going to get back to that, put a pin in it, but let's just stop and say for a moment that nobody would watch that, right? Why you think the people playing care about that? Like, seriously, are you new to sports? There's an account that I follow on Twitter that makes a very good point that a lot of media miss out on this, but I think it's a broader problem. But he says about media, a lot of media view athletes as being members of the labor force, and those athletes view themselves as warriors, right? This whole think like a boss infiltration of capitalism down to every level that we have got people fucked up. And what I mean by the fact that it got people fucked up is that you think they out there thinking like a CEO? You think they out there thinking like company men? Or company women? You think they out there on the floor being like, hey, we got to look out for the bottom line. Man, the WNBA, they pay them women $8.75 an hour. You think they out there you think they in this for the money? Like, stop and ask yourself that very simple question. Do you think those women are in this for the money? If anybody has ever been in anything for the love of the game, it is the women playing in the WNBA, because what else are they getting out of it? Seriously, what other thing are we talking about that there is for them to have? What else is there? They in it for the love of the game, and you out there telling them, hey, don't hit Caitlin Clark. She gonna make money for everybody else. When that money gonna come? What kind of money we talking about here? What are you talking about? No, they are ball players, and they out there playing ball, and this is how it works when you play ball. I feel like I'm not the only person that's ever played ball before. This is how it works when people play ball. And I love this. Now, this is number 2. Sean, I know I'm going long, so we're going to do our ad break after this block, okay? I make the argument, and this is where I started earlier, that what we're seeing is much better for business than the absence of it, than the opposite. And this is why I say that, okay? And I also want to throw in here on this point, by the way, there's no need for us to lie here. There's clearly some people with some Caitlin Clark animus. I don't know if they right. I don't know if they justified. I don't know, whatever it is. But the Angel Reese press conference there, I don't hate Caitlin Clark. You could have fooled me. You could have fooled me. Remember that time in her lowest moment when you was following her around going like this? Remember when she got knocked to the ground and you jumped up off the bench? You could have fooled me. Okay? But anyway, Caitlin Clark in college was a phenomenon. And a question that I had asked on here was, How does she stay interesting if she's not a phenomenon? Because as of now, she is not a phenomenon. And once she's not a phenomenon, you then go back to just basic storytelling and what makes these stories go. So one thing that is very interesting about sports is you don't really have to force the narrative arc upon anybody. Like I once read something about Duke Ellington that made the point that nobody would ever make a movie about the life of Duke Ellington because all he did was win, and there's nothing interesting about that. A narrative arc, the hero has to go through something, right? Like a buddy of mine who's a writer said the thing about writing drama is they're all in every scene there has to be something that the main character wants but cannot get. Even if it's ordering something and they don't have any left of that in the kitchen, right? But there always has to be something the main character wants and cannot get. And every single star, even if they got their success early, the only one I can think of that doesn't really fit is Larry Bird. But Magic Johnson, even with Magic Johnson winning 2 finals MVPs in his first 3 years in the league, 2 years later, you had tragic Magic, right? In the 84 series against Boston. And it became the thing that he had to overcome. Michael Jordan had the thing with the Pistons where he had to rise up and he had to overcome it. Patrick Mahomes is maybe one of the rare guys that doesn't fit. Tom Brady had a 9-year stretch where they did not win a Super Bowl after things had gone well up until a point. But we need to see these people suffer. What makes it interesting is when it gets hard. How do they push through that? Right? The game that we remember most about Michael Jordan is not the 63, it's not the 69, it's the flu. Right? It is remembering pushing up against something and running up into a wall. And what makes Caitlin Clark interesting at this point, now that she is not just going to be an instantaneous phenomenon, is this is the battle. This is the long road. This is what it's going to take to get there. And along the way, as she goes through these things, this is when she's going to meet more people, and we're going to meet more people along the way with her. There's going to be somebody that they play that they can't get past, and it's going to keep going and going and going. And this is what's going to make her interesting. Not a league trying to make it such that you can see her perform. This is what's going to make it a thing. Because all these folks who parachuted in, and by the way, I think I count as one of these in a lot of ways, but I'm not parachuting in just to be a fan of her. If you parachuting in to be a fan of Caitlin Clark, this is what makes you invested, right? This is what makes it feel good. Like I remember when the Braves won that World Series in 95, I'll never be able to tell you how happy I was and how good that felt because they used to be sorry. You know what I'm saying? And even if I jumped on when they got good, it was still the hard road. Lonnie Smith getting fooled by the hidden ball trick. Kirby Puckett catching the ball up against the plexiglass. Winning the series, winning the NL West in 100 zillion games, over it took in 93 to get there and then losing the first round, right? Like we've been there for the uphill on all of that. That's what makes it go. And the story, the legend, the art of Caitlin Clark is so much more interesting with these early struggles. And it's so much more interesting with all these people on the other side bumping up against her and actively trying to get in her way so that if at some point she does become the champion, this is when it'll all pay off. This is what makes it enrapturing. This is how stories work. Okay? And in the end, as much as you can lean on the capitalism of it, and you can say that people are tuning in to see that, and you can say these other women are messing up their money or no. We're here for stories. That's why every single broadcast you ever watch starts with a setup of a story. Who are the characters that you need to know? What is the setting? What is the background? Everything else. It is a story. And this story is a great one. A great one. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with playoff basketball and hockey entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Prize Picks is really simple to play, and you can make your picks and submit your entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So make sure you go to prizepicks.com/Bomani and use code Bomani for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/Bomani. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy.